Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a field often called, the invisible engine that moves the world economics.
Right, it's everywhere, even when you don't see it.
Exactly. And right at the heart of it all are the economists, the people trying to figure out how all those engrenages, the gears and cogs actually work together.
Interpreting the signals.
So, our mission today is really to pull back the curtain a bit on a day in the life of an economist. We're looking at their analysis, their impact, the challenges they face, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding their world.
And it's fascinating, really, just how broad their objectives are. People sometimes think it's just numbers, but it's so much more.
Go on, what do you mean?
Well, an economist aims to analyze data, sure, but they're looking for trends, both macro and micro. They try to predict scenarios, think recessions, inflation spikes, that sort of thing.
Kind of like economic weather forecasting. Sort of, yeah, but maybe less about perfect prediction and more about um, assessing risks and preparing for different outcomes. They advise businesses, governments too. They even design policies trying to make things more efficient or, more equal.
And research.
And research, absolutely. Contributing knowledge, trying to solve actual problems we face.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, it means their work directly influences social well-being, global growth.
Things like jobs, interest rates.
Exactly. The cost of things, it all connects back. Their decisions, their advice. It ultimately shapes the economic reality for millions, including you.
That's a huge amount of responsibility. You'd think maybe they all follow a similar career path, but that's not quite right, is it?
Not at all. That's where it gets really interesting, actually. While the core goals might be similar, understanding the economy, the paths they take can be incredibly different.
Depending on their specialization. Precisely. Take the private sector. You might find an economist there leading financial strategy for a big company or doing really critical risk assessments, maybe market intelligence.
Okay, so more company-focused.
Right. Then shift to the public sector, and suddenly they're influencing government fiscal policy, maybe designing social programs or working on economic regulations, things that directly affect citizens every day.
Very different focus.
Completely. Then you have academia. Their world is more about research, publishing in journals, pushing the boundaries of economic thought, and, of course, teaching the next generation.
Right, shaping future economists.
And finally, think about international organizations. Places like the IMF, the World Bank, the OECD.
A big global player.
Exactly. There, they're working on huge global projects, tackling issues that cross borders, like development or financial stability.
Wow, okay, the sheer breadth of that influence is something else. From one company strategy right up to global development. How does one person manage that kind of day-to-day? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, let's unpack that, because the daily routine really shows the intensity behind that impact. It often starts super early.
How early are we talking?
Like 6:30 a.m. early for many. They're immediately diving into global indicators. Think CPI, the Consumer Price Index, for a quick inflation check, GDP figures to see the big picture of economic health.
So getting a global snapshot before most people have had coffee.
Pretty much. They're scanning reports from major institutions, the Fed, the ECB, central banks, monitoring stock markets, commodities like oil, gold, seeing what happened overnight.
Okay, absorbing all that data. Then what?
Then around 8 a.m., it usually shifts to more specific tasks based on their role. So if they're in banking or consulting, they might be firing up Python or R.
Programming languages?
Yeah, using predictive models, maybe assessing credit risk, running simulations. If they're in government, it could be heading into interministerial meetings, maybe hashing out adjustments to subsidy policies.
Real policy work.
Definitely. And in academia. Could be grading papers, prepping lectures on econometrics, or maybe carving out time for their own research project.
So the morning is this intense mix of global awareness and then deep focused work, depending on their sector. What happens after that? Does the pace change?
It shifts, yeah. The afternoon becomes more about execution and decision-making. Lunch, around 12:40 p.m., is often described as productive.
Meaning not just eating a sandwich.
Exactly. It often involves networking, maybe catching a webinar on something new, like sustainable finance. It's about staying connected and informed.
Okay, continuous learning.
Always. Then, maybe around 2:00 p.m., the deep analysis really kicks in. This is where they're building reports, using visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI to make complex data understandable.
Making it visual.
Right, and running scenarios, constantly asking what if? What if the interest rates jump 0.5%? What if there's a supply chain disruption?
Testing possibilities.
Exactly. Researchers might be deep in reviewing academic papers at this time,
Hmm.
critiquing methods, building their own arguments, and by late afternoon, say 4:3 p.m., if they're in finance, it's often real-time monitoring.
Watching the markets react to news.
Precisely. Assessing the impact of breaking economic news, maybe making quick adjustments to investment strategies based on what's happening right now.
So it's really not just sitting in an office crunching numbers in isolation, is it? It's this dynamic blend of deep thought and rapid response.
That captures it perfectly. It's analysis, but it's also about communication, strategy, and reacting to a constantly changing world.
And how does the day typically wind down? Or
Oh.
does it?
Well, ideally by around 6:30 p.m., they're wrapping things up, reviewing reports, sending them off to clients or bosses, maybe prepping the agenda for the next day, trying to get ahead.
Setting the stage?
Mm-hmm. And the source we looked at mentioned disconnection around 8:00 p.m. that need to disconnect, which is vital.
But I imagine that's easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, definitely. If there's a major economic crisis unfolding, forget it. The work can go late into the night, the boundaries just blur.
Right, crisis mode kicks in.
Exactly. But otherwise, they might use the evening to read, stay updated with new research or articles. It's a field where you just have to keep learning.
It sounds incredibly demanding. Which brings us to the challenges, because a role with this kind of impact, it can't be all smooth sailing. It must feel like navigating a minefield sometimes.
That's a good way to put it. There are significant hurdles.
What are some of the big ones?
Well, one massive one is just inherent economic uncertainty. Models are powerful, but they aren't crystal balls. Think about COVID-19.
Right, nobody saw that coming quite like it happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These black swan events happen. They shock the system. So economists have to build strategies that are resilient, that can handle surprises, rather than just rely on perfect forecasts.
Dealing with the unknown. What else?
Data biases. This is huge. If the information they're working with is incomplete or flawed or biased in some way,
Garbage in, garbage out.
pretty much, it can lead to really poor analysis and bad decisions, just like building on shaky foundations. Then there are political pressures.
Oh, yeah. Especially in government roles, I imagine.
Definitely. Economic advice might be technically sound, but political goals or special interests can push things in a different direction. It forces economists to navigate this really tricky space between what's economically optimal and what's politically feasible.
Tough balancing act.
Very. And finally, you've got disruptive technology. Things like AI, big data, they're changing everything.
How so? Is it just new tools?
It's more than that. It changes how economics is done, the kind of analysis that's possible. It means economists need to constantly learn, adapt, pick up new skills just to stay current. It's relentless.
Wow. That point about uncertainty and political pressure really hits home. It shows just how much critical thinking, adaptability, and frankly, resilience an economist needs. It's clearly not a static job description.
Absolutely not. And actually, these very challenges are what push the field forward. They force innovation, which leads us nicely into, what's next? What are the exciting emerging areas?
Where's the field heading?
Well, several areas are really buzzing. Take behavioral economics.
The psychology angle.
Exactly. It blends psychology with economics to understand why people actually make the financial decisions they do, acknowledging we're not always perfectly rational calculators. It's fascinating.
What else?
Environmental economics is another huge one. It's all about sustainability, green policies, trying to put an economic value on natural resources and figure out how to protect them. Really critical work.
Absolutely essential now.
And then, of course, there's fintech and the crypto economy, blockchain, digital banks, new forms of currency.
Yeah.
It's completely reshaping finance and how we even think about money.
So the field is constantly branching out, tackling these really modern, complex issues.
It has to. It's adapting to the world's biggest challenges and opportunities, from human irrationality to climate change to digital disruption.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, it's incredibly clear that being an economist is so much more than just numbers. It requires this deep understanding of systems, of human behavior.
Anticipating risks.
Right, anticipating complex risks and ultimately developing solutions that, as we said, impact millions and millions of lives. It's about trying to read the signals from that invisible engine.
Indeed. It's a role with a unique potential, really, to genuinely shape the economic future, for better or worse, a real opportunity to make a difference.
So now that you've had this glimpse into the demanding, dynamic world of an economist, here's something to think about. What specific economic insight we touched on today might you apply, even in a small way, to your own life or work? Or maybe which of those emerging fields, behavioral insights, environmental focus, fintech, sparks your curiosity the most for digging into later?